And
it's incredible.
The fact that it's still the Brazil thing is unresolved, and so the only way it's going to be resolved is if they get rid of those 12 people.
Oh well, yeah. Wow, we're circling back.
Yeah, let's circle
back. Well, so one important observation about this. So first of all, Elon was very strong on Brazil. I think that there's a way in which he's going to probably have to cut a deal to get X back in Brazil. We don't talk at all about Zuckerberg and Google. All this pressure's on Elon. Look, are
they giving in to the requirements?
Yeah, they gave in right away. I mean, that's what's
Did they ban those people off of Facebook? All those people that you were talking about?
I mean, I can't prove it, but I assume that that's the case. They went along with it. I mean, only Elon stood up against it. So, I mean, and Facebook is just engaged in a huge amount more censorship. The fact checkers, they outsource their brain to these fact checkers who are then funded by all these bad actors. I think the thing about the Brazil that shows is, they froze Starlink's bank accounts and they seized its assets. So, because people point out, Elon's incredibly powerful, richest man in the world. I mean, Starlink is this incredible innovation. I've seen you talk about it. But at the end of the day, it actually makes him somewhat vulnerable because then they can just, it's not just about X. Like if the Brazilian government can come in and seize Starlink assets in a country where Starlink is absolutely essential because of the Amazon, it allows for this incredible connectivity. So it really, for me, it's just, you still need a free speech movement. Like you need to re-inculcate. And I think the other thing that I've realized in the last year and a half of doing the Twitter files and other censorship files is that, because I used to think that my support for free speech, that our support for free speech was sort of like natural or something, but I realized like it was taught to me. Like I remember my father teaching me about Skokie and telling me that the ACLU had defended the right of Nazis to march through a neighborhood of Holocaust survivors. And I remember being horrified by it as a very, woke kid and being like, that's very insensitive. Right. And my dad kind of being like, well, yeah, but here's why we do it that way.
Right.
And it was because actually censorship would then be used against other people. And he would also make this point, and I was making this yesterday to my future students at University of Austin, is that you want to know who the Nazis are.
Yeah.
You actually want to know who the Nazis are, and you want to argue with the Nazis.
Right.
This idea that there's a fantasy. People say, oh, well, if Germany had like censored the Nazis, then they wouldn't have come to power. They did censor the Nazis. Like they had imposed a censorship regime before the Nazis came to power. They were censoring them. They came to power, reinforced that system. So much better to defeat these bad ideas in the realm of free speech. But I do think there's a whole younger generation that never got indoctrinated into the religion of free speech in the ways that we as Gen Xers did.
Well, I think they're learning it more now because it's being discussed now because it's under threat. And I think people need to understand the ramifications of giving the government control. They're not truthful. There's no instances where you could look back and say, well, the government never lies about this. There's not one thing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's international relations, whether it's their political opponents, whatever it is. Things get distorted. There's lies that get told. That's just how it goes.
It's an incredible sort of master tool for so many different things. I mean, half of it is just calling it censorship. These guys are so good with language. They talk about how I'm just doing counter disinformation.
Right.
Like who could possibly defend disinformation and misinformation? I'm doing counter disinformation.
But the problem is like who gets to decide? And are there ramifications? Let's say if you're one of those people that said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation and you signed off on that, what are the ramifications? What's the result of that? Do people still call on you for suggestions and questions? Like people that were involved in Russiagate with Trump that promoted that idea, how come they still get to talk on CNN?
Unbelievable.
The whole thing is very bizarre. It's like if you really are against misinformation, you have to stop it everywhere you see it, including from yourself. So if your own organization is a purveyor of misinformation and you're acutely aware of it and you hide it and you dismiss it and you gaslight everybody, and then you say, we have to stop misinformation online. Well, what about yourself? How about start with you?
That's
you
what's
have
happening.
to clean up your own fucking yard before you come to us.
Well, look, I mean, it's like I'm a journalist. I'm investigating what is the truth about a lot of different topics.
Right.
I'm fighting misinformation, but I'm doing it through free speech.
But you're actually doing it. You're not. What they're doing is pretending.
Well, right.
Pretending. It's not really misinformation. It's inconvenient information. My favorite one was malinformation.
Right. Well, you should explain what that is.
Malinformation is information that is true but could be harmful.
That's amazing.
Which is so nuts. And that was, they could apply that to vaccine hesitancy, right? So you could tell truthful stories about vaccine injuries. They would attribute that they would put that in the category of this is going to contribute to vaccine hesitancy. So they would we'll put the label of malinformation on that one, and we could silence that.
Well, that was in the Facebook files, where the Facebook's top researcher says to the White House, they go, hey, our research shows that if you censor true stories of vaccine side effects, shocking as it sounds, people will become more suspicious of the vaccine. So it's actually, it's they do contradict themselves in that sense. I think the other, the Hunter Biden laptop story, we talk about it a ton, but what was so important about it is that the disinformation campaign comes before the censorship. They go out and they say, and this will be a segue to our conversation about UFOs. FBI gets the laptop in December 2019. They know it's Hunter Biden's laptop. They know it's not Russian disinformation. Aspen Institute, which is funded by the U.S. government and very close to the intelligence community, then goes and brainwashes journalists and the social media companies into preparing that there could be a hack and leak coming around Hunter Biden's laptop. And of course, Mark Zuckerberg made history here with you when he told you that the FBI had come to him in the summer of 2020 warning of a hack and leak operation. So they do that, and then they come out, and then when the laptop comes out, they demand that it be censored. But the key thing there is that there was an organized disinformation effort around that laptop by people that were fed that by the FBI. This is why I'm so confident now in saying that both the FBI and the CIA interfered in the 2020 election because they ran this disinformation campaign whereby censorship was one part of it, but it was actually the part that came after the disinformation.
And it probably would have had a significant effect on the outcome of the election.
I mean, I voted for Biden, by the way, and when I saw that story, I was like, there's clearly something wrong with it. It looks like it's it's a hack and leak. It looks like I genuinely believe that. Now, would I have voted for Trump? Otherwise, I don't know.
Well, we already had found out that the Steele dossier was bullshit, so it makes sense that would be bullshit too. There was a precedent.
Well, also the hack and leak was also about the Hillary
emails,
the Hillary emails, the John Podesta emails, the DNC emails. So it fit a particular framework, but what's important is that the FBI knew that it was legitimate the entire time.
Right, so that's misinformation. If you say that it's not true, that's misinformation.
Yeah.
You got to stop that. It's
disinformation because they knew it was not true, right?
Right.
The other one, and then the CIA, remember, Gina Haspel was director of the CIA for Trump. She was part of it because she approved the letter from the 51 former CIA directors and leaders that said that it had all the earmarks of a Russian information operation. She approved that letter within hours. All she had to do, assuming she didn't know, all she had to do was to call the FBI.
Right.
All she had to do was,
they had a very clear, agenda.
It's such an it's such an unprecedented thing. When you talk to Martin Gurry, who's a former CIA guy, you talk to people that that really love the CIA, that really believe in it. They were like, that is insanely unprecedented for these, because the classic statement is nobody ever leaves the intelligence community. So to have former intelligence people doing that is just absolutely, that's just unacceptable.
It's wild. It's really wild, and we've never had that happen before, which is why it's so scary that nothing happened because of it. There was no repercussions.
People should go to prison for that.